Welcome to the Nutrigenomic Nation podcast with Brian Highfield, certified nutritionist, author, speaker, and founder of multiple successful companies in the health world. Brian is known for educating healthcare professionals and others on improving their health and their life through breakthroughs in nutrition, technology, and biochemistry. On the podcast, Brian interviews thought leaders in the world of nutrition and natural health. He and his guests share the secrets of a whole life natural approach to health and the life-altering results you can get by making easy changes to your diet and daily routine.
Well, welcome to another episode of Nutrigenomic Nation. And today with us, we have Abe Al-Baba. Abe is the author of Fuel Your Performance and the CEO of 3-in-1 Elite, a sports performance company. His absolute passion is paving the way to a healthy lifestyle through fitness and nutrition. Now, he has trained some of the world's high-performing athletes, including some Olympians, athletes from the NFL, the NBA, and many other sports as well. And so we're very, very fortunate to have Abe with us. So welcome, Abe, to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, we talk health and nutrition here, and you are definitely an expert. Have seen a lot of things specifically around the arena of sports. But tell us, how did you get into this field in the first place?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Sports. In high school, I was nonstop. I did football, wrestling, lacrosse, and then in college I did lacrosse. And then after that, I got into boxing and kickboxing. So just constantly moving. And I remember in college, I was dating a girl that was in track and field, and I was a freshman and still didn't declare a major yet. And she was telling me about kinesiology and sports science. And I'm like, what? There's a major in that? And this is in like 06. So it was like all kind of new. And I got in and just fell in love. And what's hilarious is that my weakest subject all my life was science, but just shows with determination and interest, you can overcome.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those listening in our audience, a lot of them are probably more weekend warriors, but we may have, I know we have some very high-end athletes as well, a variety of age groups. But talk about nutrition. I mean, what is nutrition's role in sports and just our overall performance levels?
Absolutely. That's why my book is purposely called Fuel Your Performance. And really, things that we put into our body, it only makes sense that it can affect us on the court or the field or weekend warrior, even pain levels. I'd say it makes up 50 to 80% of what's going to happen. So, it's going to affect our energy. It's going to affect our ability to feel creative, feel explosive. My 3 core principles are like hydrate, fuel, and recover. So those are like the pillars. And, without hydration, without the proper amount of fuel and the recovery aspect, it can really lead you down a slippery slope of having lots of injuries, always chronic fatigue. And then it can actually lead to other things, maybe even the contributions of cancers and diseases.
So talk about the first one, talk about hydrate. I mean, I've heard that people really aren't drinking enough water, but how much hydration should people do, especially if they're a high-end athlete?
Yeah, so there's a lot of factors. A big one is going to be how much you sweat, your activity level, male, female, gender, genetics. There's a lot of factors. There's that. We all heard of kind of like 8 cups a day. Yes, sure. But that also, and I didn't know this until I was researching, but that actually assumes that you're having 4 cups from food, which is 4 cups of water from food. So
yeah, like most people don't realize that our food has water in it. And so when to your point, we're hearing 8 cups a day, it's counting that as well. So it's not 8 additional cups in addition to everything you're eating, right?
Right, exactly. So, things like apples, cucumbers, melons, leafy greens, our fruits and vegetables that we're told always to eat. Well, it's funny that, those all play a role. And if we're dehydrated or not hydrated enough, I have a saying that if you're thirsty, you're too late. So when that thirst signaling comes up from the brain, that means you're a little behind. So I have this rule of like, we all have water bottles nowadays. So you're constantly taking baby sips throughout the day just to ensure that hydration. And you could overhydrate as well. So my 7th grade teacher told me too much of a good thing is always a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I put that to the test. So I think that has a lot to say. So the hydration levels can affect your decision making. It can affect how it'll deplete your glycogen storage. So the energy that's stored within the muscles when you're fatigued, your body recruits that to keep pushing through. So it'll deplete that even quicker. So you'll be getting tired out more quickly.
All right, well, let's talk about the second one. Let's talk about fuel a little bit. I mean, in most athletes, and especially if you hang around the gym all the time, everybody's talking about protein, and so talk about what are the nutrients that are really critical for, let's say, all athletes, a broad spectrum of athletes, but maybe there's some areas, weightlifters. I mean, that's all they talk about is protein. So talk about different sources of protein and what people really should be consuming to fuel their body.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like how we're addressing athletes, but let's not forget my office athletes as well. So I call them office athletes, but you still have to perform at your career, right? If you have a big presentation, we're doing a meeting right now, you need to be fueled for this. You need to have good brain activity, good creativity to ask like good questions or whatever. So we need fuel for these things. So we got 3 macronutrients. You got your carbs, your fats, and your protein. So your carbs are going to be that faster energy that you're going to get from fruits, vegetables. A lot of people wrap their brains around complex carbs. So like the bread, the rice, potatoes. But again, carbs include your fruit and vegetables. And those are things that we want. So it'll be helpful. So if we want for pre-workout or pre-big meeting, I have a section in there that gives you ideas for snacks. So maybe an apple or a banana, something like that to help increase. Because when we use our brains, we're burning through glucose in the bloodstream. And that's one of like the main cursors for carbs at the broken down at almost the simplest level. So we have carbs, we have our fat, that's our long lasting energy we're going to get from nuts, from oils, from avocados, things like that. And that's going to help us, that's going to burn. I paint this analogy like a log. So you could burn a log and that log is slow burning and it'll last a long time. Or you can light a paper on fire and that thing ignites and it goes really fast. That's your carbs. Your carbs are the paper. Okay. Your fats are the logs. And then your protein, we talked about that. You were talking about for athletes, it's seen as the athlete's nutrient, but it really has so many other benefits. And for an athlete, it's not just about protein, but we do want to take extra consideration for it because it's going to aid our recovery from our hard workouts. But if you're really sick, it's going to aid in that recovery. So protein is why it's used for many things. It's actually a good strategy for fat loss because we get this satiety. It makes us feel full a little more than the others. So there's also the thermic effect of eating that we get from protein. If you ever eat a lot of protein, you might get the meat sweats, as they call it. And that's actually because you're burning calories digesting the protein. So carbs, you'll burn only 5 to 10%. I think fat is around 0 to 3%, but then protein's 20 to 30%. So it's a way to burn calories and also feel full. So it's a good strategy for fat loss.
Let's talk about some different sources of protein. I mean, and also the fats. I know you mentioned a few there, but where should people be getting their fats and proteins? And I think you covered carbs as far as fruits and vegetables go. So specifically about fats and proteins.
So we're all individual and we're all unique. That's what my book's about. I give you tools to figure out what works for your own unique body. But assuming we have healthy brain, healthy gut, we should be able to have what we call metabolic flexibility. So what that is being able to have variety of foods. So it could be hot, it could be cold. So for fat specifically, we talked about avocados, nuts, oils, ghee is thrown in there as well. And then with the fats, you want that variety. You don't want to overdo certain things, and you'll understand as you experiment with yourself, maybe certain foods, bug your body and you can't handle it. I know personally, I know immediately when I have too much fat, because I do love my peanut butter, but I know when I've had, okay, too much fat today, like let's tone that down. And it's also going to come in your pumpkin seeds as well. Your proteins, that's your, we think of that as animal-based, but it also there's plant-based as well. For my plant-based eaters, you're thinking more legumes, so your beans, your lentils are a big one, tofu's another one. Those are some good sources. For my animal-based proteins, you just want to think it does make a difference when things are organic. You're going to lower that the pesticide consumption and also from glyphosate, which can add a whole nother problems. They're known as endocrine disruptors. So when we go organic, you're increasing your antioxidants and you're decreasing your chance to consume these toxic things that can wreak havoc on our body. So organic with beef, a big point that I make in the book is grass-fed, and there is a reason for that. Unfortunately, it's hard to tell, like if it's actually grass-fed, because they might actually feed the animal grains the whole time and then just finish them off with grass, and then that is labeled as grass-fed. But if you make the opportunity or you make a point to go grass-fed, great, because what happens is when the cows are fed grains, we get this omega-6 buildup. And what your omega-6s do, they're pro-inflammatory, which we do need in the body. But when we have too many pro-inflammatories, they can crowd out your anti-inflammatories, which are omega-3s. So that's when it's grass-fed, it decreases that omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. So that's very important with the beef. You could do chicken. Thighs, like the muscles are good, but different parts of the animal give us different things. So it just depends. At the end of the day, wide variety. With the beef, you're going to have more fat. So you can, if you're getting more fat with your beef, go grass-fed. If not, the leaner, the better to decrease that omega-6. You could do ground turkey. There's many different options. Salmon, all across the board.
Yeah, and that's and my wife was a vegetarian for years, and then she started to eat meat again, but we tend to stay away from red meats and that. And I always like my steak, and so now when I'm eating lean poultry or things like that, but then when I have a steak every so often, I feel terrible afterwards.
Yeah.
And then why is that?
So it could be that if you haven't had it in a while, your body stops producing the enzymes that break it down. As a past vegan, I did that for about 1.5 years. I know personally exactly what you mean. You just can't break it down. You don't feel as well. I think if you start to do low dosages, because it could be the amount, just like a drug, we want this minimal effective dose. So I want the right amount of the dosage to get the most maximal effect. So get your steak fix, but maybe start off with half and maybe twice a week, and then kind of build up from there.
So stay away from the 16-ounce T-bone is what you're saying.
Yeah. Maybe it was the portion there.
So we haven't talked about recovery yet. Talk a little bit about nutrition's role in recovery and how important that is, especially for those gym rats who basically hit the gym every day or every other day.
Mm-hmm. Time and time again, I see athletes with kind of all kinds of special cases, and a big one is pain and like always feeling sore and stiff. And I just look at that nutrition, and I see that a lot of the times they're not having enough protein and or training too hard, where they're not actually doing the active recovery workouts or the recovery workouts. So we can break that down in a couple different pieces. Number one is actually sleep. Okay, when we sleep, and I'm talking like undisturbed sleep. So we're talking 7 to 9 plus hours, depending if you have, my Olympians that are like 2, 3 times working out, very strenuous schedules. you want to get more around that 9+ hours. But if you're average Joe, at least 7 hours. And what's happening is our brain and our body is detoxing, it's recovering, it's resting, and it's actually building new cells when we are sleeping. So we want to make sure that we are having good quality sleep that's uninterrupted or minimally interrupted, not waking up 30 times within 8 hours. It's waking up 1 to 2 times throughout that 8 hours. So that quality, not quantity. So sleep's number one. And then I go to my nutrition. All right. The nutrition is, we touched on protein levels is a big one to help with the recovery. But a lot of the times it's just overall having enough calories to support the activity that you're doing. So a lot of the athletes I see, not only less protein, but not enough calories in general. So we go over strategies, whether it be if you're just simply don't have the time, that's when liquids can be a useful strategy. So like smoothies, maybe soups, things like that. Adding like maybe olive oil, just little dressing on the top can add some calories. There's different strategies I go over throughout the book, how to increase calories. And then another component is actual recovery workouts. So whether that be foam rolling, whether that be mobility work, breathing work, things that, because when we work out, we have this thing, sympathetic tone goes up, which is increased heart rate, increased blood pressure. That's the fight or flight. And what you want is a good balance of parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest, decreased blood pressure, decreased heart rate. So you want to get this balance. If I'm living up here all the time, I'm lacking my parasympathetics, and then that can cause all kinds of issues. So a lot of times that's what I fix with a lot of athletes, man. Super simple. I have them do a little more breath work. There's a ratio. So for every, let's say you actually work out for 1 hour, excluding rest periods and everything, you need about 15 to 30 minutes of some kind of recovery to line up with that. So could be breathing's like the big one that I use with a lot of athletes. But foam rolling can be useful. At the end of the day, it's figuring out what works for that own unique person. What calms me down might not calm you down. So it's figuring out what relaxes you.
Really cool. That's great. I didn't even think about breathing techniques as a way or a form of recovery, and I find that very interesting. Talk to us a little bit about the power of neuroscience, because you know, I was reading your bio. It says you really embrace the power of neuroscience, and it's giving you the ability to rapidly heal pain or enhance athletic performance and unlock the client's full potential. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, whole can of worms there. So all day, every day, well, every single thing we do is brain derived. Okay. And I like to make this analogy. You're riding in a car. Okay. And let's say it's a bad day, it's snowing, you got a crack in your windshield, there's construction, so you're not going to be driving very fast. And most likely your foot is going to be on the brake pedal. Now, if it was a clear sunny day, your car's no mechanical issues, whatever, you could see clearly out the window, you're driving and maybe you're a little heavy on that gas pedal. So that's kind of what I do. I look at what's on the windshield, and neuroscience, if you understand the brain all day, every day, it's asking one question: am I going to survive? So based on how it answers that question, your foot's going to be either on the brake pedal or the gas pedal. Now we have to understand what systems it communicates with to make that conclusion. So we have our proprioceptive system. So that's how well your joints move, our awareness in space, things like that. Number 2 is our exteroceptive system. So that's kind of like the senses, seeing, tasting, smelling, things like that. And then, so that's your external environment. And then our internal environment, our interoceptive system. So that's kind of everything that my book's about and everything we talked about: nutrition, how well your digestion, how your respiration, things like that. So all that, based on those input systems, I'm going to create this output system, and either my foot's going to be on that gas pedal or the brake pedal. So I clear off what's on that windshield and keep it clear by improving the input. So it might be a vision drill. It might be a vestibular drill, which is a balance drill when you stare at your thumb and rotate your head one way. It might be sticking your tongue in your right cheek. It's all different. We all need different inputs, and it's all based on your health history. What things have you experienced? Have you had car accidents, concussions, surgeries, past broken bones, things like that? So what I do is I see an athlete and I'll have guys jump 2 to 3 inches higher on their vertical jump within our first 15 minutes after doing, this kind of drill, because I found out you had a concussion and your vestibular system has been impacted, and boom, we need to do this drill. And I see a lot of people with pain too, especially weekend warriors, and same idea. There's different parts of the brain that control or inhibit pain, and that's all based on that input system. And better input equals better output, because the brain feels safer and it can accurately calculate, am I going to survive?
Wow. Yeah, it's fascinating. It's amazing. Just little things like that can have such a huge impact. And when you're talking about high performance athletes, you're talking little things matter, right? I mean, if the difference between a gold medal and the silver medal sometimes is like fractions of a second, right? Hundreds of or even thousands of a second sometimes. So every little bit counts.
Exactly. And it's funny, like even with I'll have someone run as fast as they can, and then I was like, okay, is that the best you got? Yeah, okay, cool. And go do this vision drill. And then they go and run faster. So
amazing. Absolutely amazing. Well, we're almost out of time here, but I do want to ask you, how can our audience find out more about you? How can they get a hold of your book, Fuel Your Performance, and just connect with you?
Sure. All across like social media, I'm at 3-in-1 Elite. So that's the number 3. The word in, I as in indigo, N as in Nancy, number 1, elite. And that's also 3in1elite.com if you want to check out some of our testimonials, the services we offer. And the book is on there as well. We have a page, a shop page, and it's got all of our products. And the book, I mean, credit card, PayPal, it's on Amazon, like, if you really want it, and it's really cool. It's a guide. It's not like just reading a book. It's very interactive. We have clear assessments. So a big part of my training is we have assess and reassess protocols where we see how high you can jump. We see how you feel, whatever it is, doesn't matter to me. When we improve the input, what happens to that assessment? So in my book, I really tried to hone in on that. So we have like a score of how much energy you're having, before and after pics, performance skills, whatever it is. And it's written day 1, day 2. So it's about 10 to 20 minutes a day. And it basically takes you through about a month going through it 10 minutes a day, very interactive, where you're seeing results. So.
Awesome. Yeah, good stuff. I'm looking forward to that. So our guest has been Abe Al-Baba. He's the author of Fuel Your Performance and the CEO of 3-in-1 Elite. And I hope our audience has learned something, as I have today. I thought it was very valuable information, very interesting stuff, especially if you are either a weekend warrior, athlete, mathlete, or the office athlete.
I like that. You got a brain, we can work with you.
Exactly. That's awesome stuff. So thanks again, Abe, for being part of the program. And we'll see you next time when we talk about another topic related to your good health.
Awesome. Thank you.
This show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC. To discover how you can have your own show completely done for you and turn it into a real published book and become the authority in your marketplace, go to www.marketdominationllc.com/podcast offer.